Welcome back, future product designers, to this beginner's course on how to use Autodesk Fusion 360. My name is Avya Jamadagni, and today we'll be looking at using rectangular patterns and circular patterns. We will also be looking at using construction lines and again manipulating the design history to get different things, or to edit things that we've done in the past. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to look at is using rectangular patterns. Now, to do that, let's go ahead and create a sketch on the front face. So the front face is this face. So to do that, let's go ahead and let's click on sketch over here. And let's click on create sketch. Now again, we could have just selected that. So let's go ahead and select this face. And you see, this is what's going to come up. Now, to create a rectangular pattern, we first need a sketch object, and then based on that we can select that sketch object and then move it and then create a larger pattern. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this top left corner, and let's create a rectangle. So as we learned last time, we can just use a keyboard shortcut for this. So let's go ahead and hit R on your keyboard, and that opens up this rectangular option, this rectangle option. So let's go ahead and just create a normal rectangle, or in this case a square actually, of 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters. And let's hit enter. Now let's put 2 dimensions for this. So let's go ahead and hit D on our keyboard. Let's select this line and its parallel edge over here. Let's move this up. It says 6 millimeters right now. We want to make that 5 millimeters. And hit enter. Now again, the same thing with this edge. Let's click on this side and this top edge. And let's move it out. And as you can see, this is already 5 millimeters. So let's go ahead and hit enter. If it's not 5 millimeters, all you need to do is enter 5 and hit enter. And now we've got this perfectly constrained. So now we can start using the rectangular pattern. Let's go ahead and hit escape first to exit from this dimension mode. There we go. Now let's go to the sketch dropdown, and as you go all the way down, you see this thing called rectangular pattern. So that's what we want to select. But first we need to do some basic math. So let's go here and let's look at this thing as a whole. So what we want to do is we want to create 5 of this square along this axis, like that. So we want to create 5 of that, and we want to make it equidistant. So how do we do that? So first, let's look at the total distance between this edge and that edge. The total distance between those 2 edges can be found through the measure tool. So let's click on this option over here. Let's click on this edge, and let's click on this edge. Now we know the total distance is 101 millimeters. So let's just click randomly in the white space over here. So if that's 101 millimeters, we know that the distance from this edge over here and this edge is 15 millimeters. Hence, if that's 101 millimeters and this is 15 millimeters, then the distance from this edge and this edge should be 86 millimeters, as you see here. So if that's the distance between, if that's 86 millimeters, and we want a 5 millimeter gap between these 2 sides of the last square over here and this edge over here, then we need to do 86 minus 5 millimeters, which is 81 millimeters. So that means that the total distance that we're gonna move and copy this one rectangle, this one square, would be 81 millimeters. So now we can go ahead and we can select the rectangular pattern option. So let's go to the sketch dropdown and let's select rectangular pattern. Now it says objects and direction. So first let's select the objects. So to do that, we need to select each of the 4 sides of the square, as you can see over here. Okay, now it says 4 selected. So now in this one, let's enter 5 because we want 5 squares. And over here in the distance, let's go ahead and enter 81 millimeters. And that's what's going to come up. Now, as you can see, there are various checkboxes. So based on your design, if you don't want a certain box, you can, or a certain square, you can go ahead and uncheck it, and that's what's going to come. But we want all 5, so let's go ahead and press that. Now, we have everything over here just as we wanted. So let's go ahead and press OK. And that's what's going to happen. So now you can see each of these squares are equidistant, and they're 5 millimeters apart from this edge, especially specifically these 2 squares. And just to check that, we can go ahead and measure it again. So let's click on this measure tool. Let's click on this edge, and that's 5 millimeters. So let's go ahead and close this. So now we want to create another rectangular pattern, except downwards along this axis. So now let's do the same process we did for this one. So what we're going to do first is we're going to measure the distance between this edge and this edge. To do that, let's go ahead and click on the measure tool. Let's click on this edge and that edge, and we see the distance is 200 millimeters. We can measure this another way as well. So let's just click in the white space. Instead of clicking on this edge and that edge, we can just directly click on this edge, and that'll show us the length. So the reason we don't do that very often is sometimes if this edge is not is curved, or maybe it's not perfectly straight, the length or the distance you're gonna get over here will not be very accurate, which is why the safest way to do it is by selecting this edge and selecting that edge. So now we know that this distance is 200 millimeters. So let's go ahead and close it. And by looking at this, we know that the distance between this edge and this edge is 5 millimeters, and the side length of this square is 10 millimeters. So 5 plus 10 is 15, and since the total length of this side is 200, 200 minus 15 is 185 millimeters, which is the distance between this side, and this edge down here. And so if that's 185 millimeters, we also want a 5 millimeter gap between the last square that'll appear somewhere down here, and also this edge over here. So if we want that 5 millimeter gap, we need to subtract 5 millimeters from 185, which means that the total distance that we will copy and move this set of squares will be 180 millimeters. So let's go ahead and do that now. So let's go to Sketch, the drop down for Sketch, and let's select Rectangular Pattern. Now let's go ahead and select all the objects we require. So we need to select each of these squares. So let's select the 4 sides of each square. Now, just to confirm whether you selected all 4 sides or not, you know that each square has 4 sides and there are 5 squares. Hence, the total number of objects you should have in the end are 20. And if you don't have 20, that means that you didn't select everything. So now let's select these 2 sides, and we see that we have 20 objects selected, which is exactly what we want. Now, let's go ahead and select this arrow. To select that arrow, we just need to click on it to make it blue. And let's make the quantity 10. Now, let's change the distance as well to negative 180. And you see that we get this pattern down here, which is exactly what we want. And let's go ahead again and press OK. And now you see we've created this pattern, which is what we want. And just to confirm that there's a 5 millimeter gap between this side and this edge, let's go ahead and select the measure tool. Let's click on that side and click on this edge, and we see that that's 5 millimeters, which is exactly what we want. Let's close this now. Now we've perfected this side. Let's go to Stop Sketch, and let's show the sketch again. To do that, let's click on this light bulb, and let's go to the drop down for this and hide sketch 1. So click on the light bulb for sketch 1. So now we only see what we've got over here. Let's go ahead and close this again, the drop down. Now, let's pivot around and we see let's orbit around, sorry, and then we see that we had this pattern over here. Now, let's create a circular pattern on the base. But you see that we still have this hole from last time. Let's try to get rid of this hole by manipulating our design history. Unfortunately, guys, I'm sorry, but I have run out of time for this video. So creating the circular pattern will be the aim of the next video. Sorry again, but thank you so much, guys, for your time today. It's been great talking to you again. So the next video will definitely be about circular patterns, and we will finish this box in the next video. We will also, in the upcoming videos, we will also learn about creating fillets, and finally, we will learn about creating drawings, and finally rendering. Again, thank you so much, guys, for your time, and have a wonderful day.